Not long ago, I had some photographer friends come to my home and crash for a few days. They wanted to see why my home area is considered one of the most scenic areas in all of Oregon and perfect for outdoor photography. The plan was to get up early and go to some premium locations for early landscape opportunities that we have in our mountain community. Unfortunately, their timing could not have been worse due to simply bad luck. The reason was, like much of the United States and the world, there are fires breaking out at any time, and those of us on the west coast of the United States have not been spared. When my friends arrived, the smoke conditions were not good. The white, hazy smoke-filled sky overwhelmed much of the usually clear mountain air that we enjoy in the summer. And I wanted to take them to the most popular area to photograph sunrise. This is Sparks Lake and the South Sister Mountain in Central Oregon. And it's truly an awesome place to capture true Cascade Mountain experience in Oregon. Since my friends were only here for a couple days, we went anyway and tried hard not to breathe excessively and suck in any of the smoke. We were ready to start photographing at sunrise and quickly saw that due to all the smoke, there would be no real sunrise. It was so thick and it diffused the sun so much that there was no directional light. So we photographed pretty early and left as soon as we had some shots, heading to breakfast at a local lodge. When I got home and downloaded my images, I considered tossing them. I wondered how could I make the image look as good as all the other ones that I had captured with real light at sunrise during countless trips up to that mountain to photograph. But I'm also one to look at every photograph I take and ask myself, what can I do with it to make it better? I decided to go for white on white look, like this image of a model in all white clothing on a white background, created with my 3D software. That meant most tones, if possible, are brighter than 50% gray, with the exception of the trees that you see here in the photograph. So to do this with a raw file meant keeping the brighter tones as bright as possible and for the trees to go as close as they could to black. So I'm going to show you now how I did all those steps in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. I happen to be using Photoshop 25 beta at the moment. I'm not going to be doing any generative AI fill or anything like that, so that's irrelevant for the most part. But here's the image, and you can see, I mean, it's really full contrast, but yet it's also kind of flat. Part of the thing is, there's detail in the dark shadows, there's detail in the brightest part of the mountain, but it's kind of like that detail isn't that important when you compare a non-smoky day like this photo right here. I'm thrilled with this photo. It was not smoky that day. It was beautiful sunset lighting and so on. But here, the smoke is so thick, so it's like overcast. I don't really care about preserving detail per se, like this area in here or even the snowfields on the mountain. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about the detail in here. So that's one of the reasons I want to kind of push the envelope here a little bit and try something that I don't normally try. So here we are. We're open in Adobe Camera Raw. I'm going to get rid of this little sliver of rock. It's going to be the first thing I get rid of. And so we'll come in there and get rid of that. And we were up here in the retouching tool, and then I'm going to go back to the basic editing panel. So for the most part, I'm looking at it and I'm going, what do I want to do? I want to force these to black with almost no detail in them, and I want to force this to white with almost no detail. Well, there's no detail anyway, but force it to white as best I can. Really push it up here. It won't be the same down here because water never reflects 100% of what it sees in the sky. You got to do that in Photoshop if you want it to look to be the same for the most part. So, okay, I'm going to start playing with the exposure slider. How far up can I go and still get where I want? And I'm up quite a bit. I'm kind of okay with that, but I'm going to come back down and start right here. And one of the things about doing this type of processing is you're going to go up and down those sliders, tweaking them to get exactly what you want. So we'll start there, and then I want some contrast. So what can I do to kind of force the trees to black? How far do we need to go? And we are at about 25 now. I kind of like it. I'm going to stop there. I can still see detail here, so I may use the black slider to change that. So now let's see. Next slider is going to be highlights. What do I want to do with highlights? Well, I'm doing it fast just to kind of see what happens. So I don't really see a tremendous amount of benefit getting me where I want to go. So maybe I'm just going to give this just a little bit, like 2. Okay. And then the shadows would be next. Okay. I don't want to preserve any shadow detail because I want those trees to go black. So let's go down on a little bit. We'll get kind of down in here. All right. Now, if I go all the way down in the shadows, I'm bringing the mountain with me. And so I don't want to go that far. I only want to push the trees maybe about right there as a starting point. All right, looks pretty good. Okay, whites are next. Don't want to go up on whites. No, I don't want to do that. And what about going down? White would be the sky for the most part. So I'm going to just give that a hint at the moment and keep going through the sliders, then coming back, as I mentioned earlier, and tweaking them a little bit. So we've got, let's see, what do we got here? Next is we're going to have our blacks. So again, I want to push. There's detail. I don't want that. And of course, that made the whole image too dark. So carefully coming down, pushing those trees closer to black. And I'm already liking what I'm seeing as far as where we're at here. I think this looks pretty darn cool. There's still a little detail in those shadows. Let's blow them up and see. Oh yeah, plenty of detail, but they're going very dark. So I could go a little further on the blacks just to try to really force them to lose their detail. So they're almost kind of like silhouette against a really flatly lit background. So not bad. I'm stopping for a moment to analyze what I got, see if I like what I got. Let's go up on the exposure overall just a little bit more. All right, our trees are still staying really dark. I just don't know how far up I want to go here. That's not bad. I'm about +1 on exposure. Kind of like that. And this is still staying pretty dark. What happens if we go down a little more on the black? Now I'm starting to take the mountains in the background with me. So let's bring it back up. Come back down. I think I'm going to stop right there. I don't want this to go any darker. Just this. So that was on the blacks. Let's try the shadows again. Go up on the shadows, down on the shadows. Yeah, it's going to be kind of the same thing. So I'm going to stick with where I was at about 15, 12, 15, somewhere right in there. Not bad. The question is whether I want that to bleach out a little bit more than it probably is, and I don't think I do. So coming back down a little bit on exposure, kind of maintaining some of that detail. Yeah, I'm going to probably stop right there. This still looks pretty darn wad, even though it's probably a tiny bit gray. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. The other thing I want to experiment with is dehaze, because this is what dehaze is for. But you can see what's happening. Boy, super strong contrast. I like that. I think it looks kind of cool, but not what I want as far as a look. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to dehaze it at all. I think part of the allure is that it is hazy. But if I go the other way, well, that looks pretty like that could be a really smoky day. I'm going to go down on that just about 7. And I'm going to kind of leave that right there. So the next question is, do I want any saturation, or would I prefer desaturation? And the original photo had a blue cast to it. And I thought, well, maybe I should leave that, but maybe I should take it out a little bit too. And that's a tough one. I think I'm just going to leave it where it was at 0. So that is pretty much how I process this. Very simple photograph. I just wanted to turn what I thought was a piece of junk into a decent image that has people kind of going, oh, well, that's interesting and kind of cool. But I pushed the envelope as far as the extremes. I took the dark tones and I made them very dark, and I took the brighter tones and I made them much brighter. And there's some overlap in the middle, like in this area here, closer probably to the mid-tones, middle gray kind of thing. But for the most part, I really sort of pushed the envelope each direction to try to create something a little bit more extreme. So that's pretty much it. This is what I did for this particular image to ideally make it pop. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in another one. Hey, thanks for watching New Photography School. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming tutorials. Keep shooting.